To you, she does not, to be sure, know to whom she gives it. She is only desirous of restoring the jewels which she insists in believing to belong to Robert Fletcher's family. Therefore, as it would be obviously impossible to find out and to divide this fortune among all the descendants of Robert Fletcher, who are scattered about the globe, she was resolved to give them to the eldest descendant of the second daughter. Oh, Alec turned pale and dropped into a chair, broken up. To the eldest descendant of the second daughter, then. Then to you, as the only grandson of the second daughter, Frances. The second daughter was? He checked himself, he sighed, he sat up. His eyes, always small and too close together, grew smaller and closer together. The other branch of the family, he said slowly, has vanished, as you say, it is scattered over the face of the globe. I do not know anything about my cousins, if I have any cousins. Perhaps when you have carried on the search a little further. But I am not going to carry it on any further at all. Why should I? We have nothing more to learn. I am instructed by Armorel to give the rubies to you. It is a gift, not a right. It is not an inheritance, remember, it is a free gift. She says, these rubies used to belong to Robert Fletcher. I will restore them to someone of his kin. You are that someone, why should I inquire further? Oh, Alex sank back in his chair and closed his eyes as one who recovers from a sharp pang, and sighed deeply. If you are satisfied, then, but if other cousins should turn up, they will have nothing because nobody is entitled to anything. Come, Alec, my boy, you look a little overcome. It is natural. Pull yourself together and look at the facts. You will have £35,000, perhaps a little more, at 4%. I think I can put you in the way of getting so much with safety. You will have 1,400 a year. You will have that, apart from your literary and artistic income. It is not a gigantic fortune, it is true, but let me tell you that it is a very handsome addition indeed to any man's income. You will not be able to live in Kensington Palace Gardens, where your wife lived as a girl, but you can take a good house and see your friends and have anything in reason. Well, that is all I have to say, except to congratulate you, which I do, my Alec. He seized the fortunate young man's hand and shook it warmly, most heartily. I do indeed. You deserve your good luck, every bit of the good luck that has befallen you. Everybody who knows you will rejoice. And it comes just at the right moment, just when you have acknowledged your marriage and taken your wife home. Really, said Alec, now completely recovered, I am overwhelmed with this stroke of luck. It is the most unexpected thing in the world. I could never have dreamed of such a thing. To find out on the same day that one's great-grandfather once made a fortune and lost it, and that it has been recovered, and that it is all given to me, it naturally takes one's breath away at first. You would like to gaze upon this fortune from the ruby mines of Burma, would you not? Mr. Jagnal threw open the door of a safe and took out a parcel in brown paper. It is here. He opened the parcel and disclosed the shagreen case which we 273 have already seen in the sea chest. He laid it on the table and unrolled the silk in which the stones were rolled. There they are, look common enough, don't they? One seems to have picked up stones twice as pretty on the seashore. Here are 2 or 3 cut and polished. Bits of red glass would look as pretty. £35,000. Alec cried, laying a hand, as if in episcopal benediction, upon the treasure. Is it possible that this little bundle of stones should be worth so much? Quite possible. Now, they are yours. What will you do with them? First, I will ask you to put them back in the safe. I will send them to your bank if you please. No, keep them here. I will consult you immediately about their disposition. £35,000. 35? Perhaps we may get more for them. What am I to say to this girl? Perhaps when she learns who has got the rubies she will refuse to let them go. I am sure she would never consent. Nonsense about persecution and annoyance. Armorel hate you? Why should she hate you? The sweetest girl in the world. You men of genius are too ready to take offense. The things are yours. I have given them to you by her instructions. I have written you a letter formally conveying the jewels to you. Here it is. And now go home, my dear fellow, and when you feel like taking a holiday, do it with a tranquil mind, remembering that you've got £1,400 a year given you for nothing at all by this young lady, who wasn't obliged to give you a penny. Why, in surrendering these jewels, she has surrendered a good half of her whole fortune. Find me another girl anywhere who would give up half her fortune for a scruple, and now go away and tell your wife. Let her rejoice. Tell her it is Armorel's wedding present. Alec Fielding walked home. He was worth £35,000, £1,400 a year. When one comes to think of it, though we call ourselves such a very wealthy country, there are comparatively few, indeed, among us who can boast that they enjoy an income of £1,400 a year, with no duties, responsibilities, or cares about their income, and with nothing to do for it. £1,400 a year is not great wealth, but it will enable a man to keep up a very respectable style of living. Many people in society have got to live on a great deal less. He and his wife were going to live on nothing a year, except what they could get by their wits. 1,400 a year, they could still exercise their wits. That is to say, he should expect his wife, now the thinking partner, to exercise her wits with zeal. But what a happiness for a man to feel that he does not live by his wits alone. Alas, it is a joy that is given to few indeed of us. As for his late literary and artistic successes, how poor and 274 paltry did they appear to this man, who had no touch of the artist nature, beside this solid lump of money, worth all the artistic or poetic fame that ever was achieved. He went home dancing. He was at peace with all mankind. He found it in his heart to forgive everybody. Roland Lee, who had so basely deserted him, Effie, that snake in the grass, Lady Frances, the most treacherous of women, Armorel herself. Oh, heavens, what could not be forgiven to the girl who had made him such a gift? Even the revolt against his authority, even the broken panel, the shattered lock, and the earthquake. In this mood he arrived home. His wife, the thinking partner, was hard at work in the interests of the new firm. In her hand was a manuscript volume of verse. On the table beside her lay an open portfolio of sketches and drawings. "You see, Alec," she looked up, smiling. "Already the ghosts have begun to appear at my call. If you ask me where I found them, I reply, as before, that when one travels about with a country company one has opportunities. All kinds of queer people may be heard of. Your ghosts, in future, my dear boy, must be of the tribe which has broken down and given in, not of those who are still young and hopeful. I have found a man who can draw. Here is a portfolio full of his things. In black and white. They can be reproduced by some photographic process. He is in an advanced stage of misery, and will never know or ask what becomes of his things. He ought to have made his fortune long ago. He hasn't, because he is always drunk and disreputable. It will do you good to illustrate the paper with your own drawings. There's a painter I have heard of. He drinks every afternoon and all the evening at a certain place, where you must go and find him. He has long since been turned out of every civilized kind of society, and you can get his pictures for anything you like. He can't draw much, I believe, but his coloring is wonderful. There is an elderly lady, too, of whom I have heard. She can draw, too, and she's got no friends and can be got cheap. And this book is full of the verses of a poor wretch who was once a rising literary man, and now carries a banner at Drury Lane Theatre whenever they want a super. As for your stories, I have got a broken-down actor. He writes better than he can act to write stories of the boards. They will appear anonymously, and if people attribute them to you, he will not be able to complain. Oh, I know what I am about, Alec. Your paper shall double its circulation in a month, and shall multiply its circulation by 10 in 6 months, and without the least fear of such complications as have happened lately. They must lie avoided for the future, proposals as well as earthquakes, my dear Alec. Alec sat down on the table and laughed carelessly. "Zoe," he said, "you are the cleverest woman in the world. It was a lucky 275 day for us both when you came here. I made a big mistake for 3 years. Now I've got some news for you, good news." "That can only mean money." "It does mean money, as you say. Money, my dear, money that makes the mare to go." "How much, Alec?" "More than your 4,000. 20 times as much as that little balance in your book." "Oh, Alec, is it possible? 20 times as much, 80,000 pounds." "About that sum," he replied, exaggerating with the instincts of the city, inherited, no doubt, from Robert Fletcher. "Perhaps quite that sum if I manage certain sales cleverly." "Is it a legacy or an inheritance? How did you get it?" "It is not exactly a legacy. It is a kind of restoration to an unknown person, a gift not made to me personally, but to me unknown." "You talk to me in riddles, Alec." "I would talk in blank verse if I could. It is, indeed, literally true. I have received an estate in portable property worth nearly 40,000 pounds." "Oh, then we shall be really rich and not have to pretend quite so much? A little pretense, Alec, I like. It makes me feel like returning to society. Too much pretense reminds one of the policemen. Don't you want to know how I have come into this money?" "I am not curious, Alec. I like everything to be done for me. When I was a girl, there were carriages and horses and everything that I wanted, all ready, all done for me, you know? Then I was stripped of all. I had nothing to do or to say in the matter. It was done for me. Now you tell me you have got 80,000 pounds. Oh, heavens, it is done for me. The ways of fate are so wonderful. Things are given and things are taken away. Why should I inquire how things come? Perhaps this will be taken away in its turn." "Not quite, Zoe. I have got my hand over it. You can trust your husband, I think, to keep what he has got." Indeed, he looked at this moment cunning enough to be trusted with keeping the national debt itself. £80,000, she said. Let me write it down. £80,000, 8 and 1 2 3 4 aughts. She wrote them down and clasped her hands, saying, "Oh, the beauty, the incomparable beauty of the last aught." Perhaps not quite so much, said her husband, thinking that the exaggeration was a little too much. Don't take off one of my aughts, not my fourth, not my Napoleon of aughts. No, no, keep your 4 aughts. Well, my dear, if it is 276 only 60,000 or so, there is 2,000 a year for us. 2,000 a year. Don't, Alec, don't, not all at once, break it gently. We will carry on the paper, and perhaps do something or other, carefully, in art. There is no need to knock things off. And if you can make the paper succeed as you think, there will be so much the more. Well, we can use it all. For my part, Zoe, my dear, I don't care how big the income is. I'm equal to 10,000. Of course, and you will still pronounce judgments and be a leader. Now let us talk of what we will do, where we will live, and all. 2,000 is pretty big to begin with, after 3 years tight fit, but the paper will bring in another 2,000 easily. I've been looking through the accounts, bills, and returns, and I am sure it has been villainously managed. We will run it up, we will have 10,000 a year to spend. A vast deal may be done with 10,000 a year. We will have a big weekly dinner as well as an at-home. We will draw all the best people in London to the house. We will. She enlarged with great freedom on what could be done with this income. She displayed all the powers of a rich imagination. Not even the milkmaid of the fable more largely anticipated the joys of the future. And oh, Alec, she cried. To be rich again, rich only to the limited extent of 10,000 a year is too great happiness. When my father was ruined, I thought the world was ended. Well, it was ended for me because you made me leave it and disappear. The last 4 years I should like to be clean forgotten and driven out of my mind, horrid years of failing and enduring and waiting, and now we are rich again. Oh, we are rich again, it is too much happiness. The tears rose to her eyes, her soft and murmuring voice broke. My poor Zoe, her husband laid his hand on hers. I am rejoiced, he said, as much for your sake as for my own. How did you get this wonderful fortune, Alec? Through Mr. Jagnal the lawyer. It's a long story. A great-grandfather of mine was wrecked and lost his property. That was 80 years ago. Now his property was found. Who do you think found it? Armorel Rosevian. And she has restored it to me. What? She sprang to her feet, her face suddenly turning white. What, Armorel? Yes, certainly. Curious coincidence, isn't it? The very girl who has done me so much mischief. The man was wrecked on the island where her people lived. Yes, 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 the property, what was it? What was it? Quick, 277. It was a leather case filled with rubies. Rubies worth at least £35,000. What's the matter? Rubies, her rubies? Oh, Armorel's rubies. No, 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 not that. Anything but that. Armorel's rubies, Armorel's rubies. What is the matter, Zoe? What is it? She gasped. Her eyes were wild. Her cheek was white. She was like one who is seized with some sudden horrible and unintelligible pain. Or she was like one who has suddenly heard the most dreadful and most terrible news possible. What is it, Zoe? Her husband asked again. Oh, you have brought me this news. I thought perhaps someone Armorel or some other might find me out, but you. Again, Zoe, he tried to be calm, but a dreadful doubt seized him. What does this mean? I remember, she laughed wildly, what I said when I gave you the bank book. If you found me out, I said, we should be both on the same level. You would be able to hold out your arms, I said, and to cry, you have come down to my level. Come to my heart, sister, in wickedness. That is what I said. Oh, I little thought it was a prophecy. My words have come true. She caught her head with her hand. It is a stagey gesture. She had learned it on the stage. Yet at this moment of trouble it was simple and natural. What the devil do you mean? He cried with exasperation. They were your rubies all the time, and I did not know. Your rubies, if I had only known. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? Tell me quick what you have done. He caught her by the arm roughly. He actually shook her. His own face now was almost as white as hers. Quick, tell me, tell me, tell me. You wanted money badly, she gasped. Her words came with difficulty. You told me so every time I saw you. It was to get money that I went to live with Armorel. I could not get it in that way, but I found another way. She told me about the rubies. I knew where they were kept, in the bank, in a sealed packet. I had seen an inventory of the things in the bank. Armorel told me the story of the rubies, and I never believed it. I never thought that there would be any search for the man's heirs. I never thought the story was true. She told me, besides, all about her other things, her miniatures and snuff boxes, and watches and rings. She showed me all her beautiful lace, worth thousands. And as for the gold things and the jewels, they were all in the bank, in separate sealed parcels numbered. She showed me the bank receipts. Opposite each number was 278 written the contents of each, and opposite number 3 was written, the case containing the rubies. Well's well. Hush, what did I do? Let me think. I am going mad, I believe. It was for your sake, all for your sake, Alec, all for your sake that I have ruined you. Ruined me? Quick, what have you done? It was for your sake, Alec, all for your sake. Oh, for your own sake I have lost and ruined you. You will drive me mad, I think, he gasped. I wrote a letter, one day, to the manager of the bank. I wrote it in imitation of Armorel's hand. I signed her name at the end so that no one could have told it was a forgery. My letter told him to give the sealed packet numbered 3 to the bearer who was waiting. I sent the letter by a commissionaire. He returned bringing the packet with him. And then, oh, then, Alec, you will kill me. You will surely kill me when you know. You care for nothing in the world but for money, and I have stolen away your money. It is gone, it is gone. You stole those rubies, but I have seen them. They are in Jagenal's safe. What do you mean? He cried hoarsely. I have sold them. I stole them and I sold them all. They were worth, how much did you say? 50, 60, 80,000 pounds? I sold them all, Alec, for 4,225 pounds. I sold them to a Dutchman in Hatton Garden. You are raving mad. You dream. I have seen them. I have handled them. What you have seen were the worthless imitation jewels that I substituted. I found out where to get sham rubies made of paste or something, some cut and some uncut. I bought them, and I substituted them in the case. Then I returned the packet to the bank. I had the packet in my possession no more than one morning. The man who bought the stones swore they were worth no more. He said he should lose money by them. He was going away to America immediately, and wanted to settle at once. Otherwise he would not give so much. That is what I have done, Alec. Oh, he stood over her, his eyes glaring. He roared like a wild beast. He raised his hand as if to slay her with a single blow. But he could find no words. His hand remained raised. He was speechless. He was motionless. He was helpless with blind rage and madness. His hand remained raised. He was speechless. He was motionless. He was helpless with blind rage and madness. His hand remained raised. He was speechless. He was motionless. He was helpless with blind rage and madness. His wife looked up and waited. Now that she had told her tale, she was calm. If you are going to kill me, she said, you had better do it 279 at once. I think I do not care about living any longer. Kill me if you like. He dropped his arm. He straightened himself and stood upright. You are a thief, he said hoarsely. You are a wretched, miserable thief. She pointed to the picture on the easel. And you, my husband. He threw himself into a chair. Then he got up and paced the room. He beat the air with his hands. His face was distorted. His eyes were wild. He abandoned himself to one of those magnificent rages of which we read in history. William the Conqueror, King Richard, King John, many medieval kings used to fall into these rages. They are less common of late, but then such provocation as this is rare in any age. When at last speech came to him, it was at first stuttering and broken. Speech of the elementary kind, speech of primitive man in a rage, speech ejaculatory, speech interjectional, speech of railing and cursing. He walked, or rather tramped, about the room. He stamped with his foot. He banged the table with his fist. He roared. He threatened. He cleared the dictionary of its words of scorn, contempt, and loathing. He hurled all these words at his wife. As a tigress bereft of her young, so is such a man bereft of his money. His wife, meantime, sat watching, silent. She waited for the storm to pass. As for what he said, it was no more than the rolling of thunder. She made no answer to his reproaches, but for her white face you would have thought she neither heard, nor felt, nor cared. Outside, the discreet manservant heard every word. Once, when his master threatened violence, he thought it might be his duty to interfere. As the storm continued, he began to feel that this was no place for a manservant who respected himself. He remembered the earthquake. He had then been called upon to remove from its hinges a door fractured in a row. That was a blow. He was now compelled to listen while a master, unworthy of such a servant, brutally swore at his wife. He perceived that his personal character and his dignity no longer allowed him to remain with such a person. He resigned, therefore, that very day. When the bereaved sufferer could say no more, for there comes a time when even to shriek fails to bring relief, he threw himself into a chair and began to cry. Yes, he cried like a child. He wept and sobbed and lamented. The tears ran down his cheeks. His voice was choked with sobs. The discreet manservant outside blushed with shame that such a thing should happen under his roof. The wife looked on without a sign or a word. We break down and cry when we have lost the thing which most we love. It 280 may be a wife, it may be a child. In the case of this young man, the thing which most he loved and desired was money. It had been granted to him, in large and generous measure. And lo, it was torn from his hands before his fingers had even closed around it. Oh, the pity of it. This fit, too, passed away. Half an hour later, when he was quite quiet, exhausted with his rage, his wife laid her hand upon his shoulder. "Alec," she said, "I have always longed for one thing most of all. It was the only thing I once thought that made it worth the trouble to live. An hour ago it seemed that the thing had been granted to me, and I was happy even with this guilt upon my soul. I know you for what you are, yet I desired your love. Henceforth, this dreadful thing stands between us. You can no longer love me, that is certain, because I have ruined you, any more than I can hold you in respect. Yet we will continue to walk together, hand in hand. I will work and you shall enjoy. If we do not love each other, we can continue in partnership and show to the world faces full of affection. At least you cannot reproach me. I am a thief, it is true, most true. And you, Alec, you, oh, my husband, what are you?" Chapter 25. To forget it all. When Philippa read the announcement in the Times, she held her breath for a space. It was at breakfast. Her father was reading the news. She was looking through that column which interests us all more than any other. Her eye fell upon her cousin's name. She read, she changed color, she read again. Her self-control returned. She laid down the paper. "Here," she said, "is a very astonishing announcement. A very astonishing announcement indeed." An hour later, she called upon Armorel at her rooms. "You are left quite alone in consequence of this amazing revelation." "Quite, not that I mind being alone, and Effie Wilmot is coming." "Nothing in the world," said Philippa, "could have astonished me more. It is not so much the fact of the marriage. Indeed, my cousin's name was mentioned at one time a good deal in connection with hers, but the dreadful duplicity. He sent her to you, she came to us as a widow. And for 3 years they have been married, is it possible?" "Indeed," said Armorel, "I know nothing. She left me without a cause, and now I hear of her marriage, that is all." 281. "My dear, the thing reflects upon us. It is my cousin who has brought this trouble upon you." "Oh no, Philippa, as if you could be held responsible for his actions. And indeed you must not speak of trouble, I have had none. My companion was never my friend in any sense. We had nothing in common, we must have parted company very soon. She irritated me in many ways, especially in her blind praise of the man who now turns out to be her husband. I really feel much happier now that she has gone." "But you have no companion, no chaperone." "I don't want any chaperone, I assure you." "But you cannot go into society alone." "I never do go into society. You know that nobody ever called upon Mrs. Elstree, or Mrs. Fielding, as we must now call her. There are only 2 houses in the whole of this great London, into which I have found an entrance, yours and Mr. Jagenel's." "Yes, I know now. And most disgraceful it is that you should have been so sacrificed. That also is my cousin's doing. He represented his wife. It seems difficult to believe that he has got a wife, as a person belonging to a wide and very desirable circle of friends. Not a soul called upon her. The world cannot continue to know a woman who has disappeared bodily for 3 long years, during which she was reported to have been seen on the stage of a country theater. What has she been doing? Why has she been in hiding? It was culpable negligence in Mr. Jagenel not to make inquiries. What it must be called and my cousin others may determine. As for you, Armorel, you have been most disgracefully and shamefully treated. I suppose I ought to have had a companion who was recognized by society, but it seems to matter very little. I have made 1 or 2 new friends, and I have found an old friend. It is not too late, of course, even for this season. Now, my dear Armorel, I am charged with a mission. It is to bring you back with me, to get you to stay with us for the season, and at least until the summer holidays. That is, if you would be satisfied with our friends. Thank you, Philippa, 1,000 times. I do not think I can accept your kindness, however, because I feel as if I must go away somewhere. I have had a great deal of anxiety and worry. It has been wretched to feel, as I have been made to feel, that I was in the midst of intrigues and designs, the nature of which I hardly understood. I must go away out of the atmosphere. I will return to London when I have forgotten this time. I cannot tell you all that has been going on, except that I have discovered one deception after another." "She is an abominable woman," said Philippa. "On the island of Samson, at least, there will be no wives who call themselves widows, and no men who call themselves painters 282 and poets," she was going to say, but she checked herself, "call themselves. she substituted, single men when they are already married. But surely you will not go away now, just at the very beginning of the season. The season is nothing at all to me. Oh, but Armorel think you ought to belong to society. You are wealthy, you are a most beautiful girl, you are quite young, and you have so many gifts and accomplishments. My dear cousin, you might do so well, so very well. There is no position to which you could not aspire. Armorel laughed. Not in that way, she said. I have already told you, dear Philippa, that I am not able to think of things in that way. Always that dream of girlhood, dear? Well then, come and show yourself, if only to make the men go mad with love and the women with envy. Stay with us. Or, if you prefer it, I will find you a companion who really does belong to the world. No, no, for the present I have had enough of companions. I want nothing more than to go home and rest. I feel just a little battered. My first experience of London has not been, you see, quite what I expected. Let me go away and come back when I feel more charitable towards my fellow creatures. You have had a most horrid experience, said Philippa. I trembled for you when I learned who your companion was. I was at school with her, and well, I do not love her. But what could I do? Mr. Jagnal said she had been most strongly recommended. I could not interfere. It was too late. And besides, after what had happened years before, it would have looked vindictive. And then she has been rich and is now poor, and perhaps I thought she wanted money. And when one has quarreled, it is best to say nothing against your enemy. Besides, I knew nothing definite against her. She said she was a widow. My cousin Alex said that he had been an old friend of her husband. He spoke of having helped him. Oh, he made up quite a long and touching story about his dead friend. So, you see, I refrained, and if I could say nothing good, I would say nothing bad. I am sure that no one can possibly blame you in the matter, Philippa. Yet I blame myself, for if I had caused a few questions to be asked at first, all the lies about the widowhood might have been avoided. Others would have been invented. Perhaps, well, she is married, and I don't suppose her stay here will have done you any real harm. As for her, to go masquerading as a widow and to tell 1,000 lies daily can hardly do any woman much good. Have you made up your mind how you will treat her if you should meet? 283. She has settled that question. She wrote me a letter saying that she has behaved so badly that she wishes never to see me again, and if we should meet, she begs that it will be as perfect strangers. Really, after all that has been done, that is the very least. So we are to meet as strangers. I suppose that will be best. It would be impossible to ask for explanations. Poor Zoe, one does not know all her history. She told me once that she had been very unhappy. I have heard her crying in her room at night. Perhaps she is to be more pitied than blamed. It is her husband whom I find it difficult to forgive and to forget. He is like a nightmare. He cannot be put so easily out of my mind. Unfortunately, no. I who have thought of him all my life must continue to think of him. You will forgive him, Philippa. You must. Besides, you have less to forgive. He has never offered his hand and heart to you. Philippa blushed a rosy red, and confusion gathered to her eyes, because there had, in fact, been many occasions when things were said which, Armorel was sorry that she had said this. You mean, Armorel, that he actually did this to you? Yes, it was only the other day, the morning after we read the play. He came to the National Gallery, where I often go in the morning, and, in one of the rooms, he told me how much he loved me. Words, however, go for nothing in such things, and kindly said that marriage with me would complete his happiness. Oh, he is a villain indeed. Her voice rose and her cheeks flushed. Forgive him, Armorel, never. Considering that it was only a day or two before he was going to announce in the paper the fact that he had been married for 3 years, it does seem pretty bad, doesn't it? And you, Armorel. Fortunately, I was able to dismiss him unmistakably. Oh, Philippa cried in exasperation. My cousin has been guilty of many treacherous and base actions, but this is quite the worst thing that I have heard of him, worse even than sending you his own wife under a false name and disguised with a lying story on her lips. No, Armorel, I will never forgive him. Never. Her eyes gleamed and her lips trembled. She meant what she said. Never. It is the worst, the most wicked thing he has ever done, because he might have succeeded. I suppose he meant to get something by the pretense. He wanted, I suppose, to have it reported that he was going to marry a rich girl. I had heard that he was continually seen with you, and I had also heard that he had confessed to an engagement which was not to be announced. My father has found out that his affairs are in great confusion. 284. But what good would an engagement of 24 hours do for him? Indeed, I do not understand. Perhaps, after all, he had allowed himself to fall in love, but I do not know. Men sometimes seem to behave like mad creatures, with no reason or rule of self-control, as if there was no such thing as consequence and no such thing as the morrow. I do not understand anything about him. Why are his affairs in confusion? He had, to begin with, a fortune of more than £12,000 from his mother. His pictures latterly commanded a good price. And his paper is supposed to be doing well. To be sure, he keeps horses and goes a great deal into society. And perhaps his wife has been a source of expense to him, but it is no use trying to explain or to find out things. Meantime, to you, his conduct has been simply outrageous. A man who sends his own wife as companion to a girl and then makes love to her is, my dear, there is no other word, he is a wretch, I will never forgive him. Armorel felt that she would keep her word. This pale, calm, self-contained Philippa could be moved to anger. And again she heard her companion's soft voice murmuring, my dear, the woman shows that she loves him still. Fortunately for me, said Armorel, my heart has remained untouched. I was never attracted by him, and latterly, when I had learned certain things, it became impossible for me to regard him with common kindliness. And besides, his pretense and affectation of love were too transparent to deceive anybody. He was like the worst actor you ever saw on any stage, wooden, unreal, incapable of impressing anyone with the idea that he meant what he said. I wonder how far Zoe, his wife, knew of this. I would rather not consider the question, Philippa. But indeed, one cannot help just at first thinking about it, and I am compelled to believe that she was his servant and his agent throughout. I believe she was instigated to get money from me if she could, and I believe she knew his intentions as regards me, and that she consented. She must have known, and she must have consented. She would excuse herself on the ground of being his wife. For their husbands, some women will do anything. Perhaps she worships him. His genius, very likely, overshadows and awes her. Armorel smiled, but made no objection to this conjecture. Some women worship the genius in a man as if it was the man himself. Some women worship the man quite apart from his genius. I used to worship Alec long before he was discovered to be a genius at all. When I was a schoolgirl, Alec was my knight, my Galahad, purest-hearted and bravest of all the knights. There was no one in the world, no living man and very few dead men, Bayard, Sidney, Charles I, and 2 or 3 more only, who could stand beside him. He was so handsome, so brave, so great, and 285 so good, that other men seemed small beside him. Well, my hero passed through Cambridge without the least distinction. I thought it was because he was too proud to show other men how easily he could beat them. Then he was called to the bar, but he did not immediately show his eloquence and his abilities. That was because he wanted an opportunity. And then I went out into the world, and made the discovery that my hero was in reality quite an ordinary young man, rather big and good-looking, perhaps, with, as we all thought then, no very great abilities. And he certainly was always, and he is still, heavy in conversation, but he was still my cousin, though he ceased to be my hero. He was more than a cousin, he was almost my brother, and brothers, as you do not know, perhaps, Armorel, sometimes do things which require vast quantities of patience and forgiveness. I am sure no girl's brother ever wanted forgiveness more than my cousin Alec. Her face, cold and pale, had in fact the sisterly expression. Philippa's enemies always declared that in the composition and making of her the goddess Venus, who presumably takes a large personal interest in the feminine department, had no lot or part at all. Yet certain words, the late companion's words, kept ringing in Armorel's ears. My dear, the woman loves him still. She has never ceased to love him. There was nothing to forgive at first, she went on. On the contrary, everything to admire, yet his career has been throughout so unexpected as to puzzle and bewilder us. Consider, Armorel. Here was a young man who had never in boyhood, or later, shown the least love or leaning towards art or the least tinge of poetical feeling, or the smallest power as a raconteur, or any charm of writing, suddenly becoming a fine painter, a really fine painter, a respectable poet, and an admirable storyteller. When he began with the first picture, there grew up in my head a very imaginative and certain set of ideas connecting the painter's mind with his art. I saw a grave mind dwelling gravely and earnestly on the interpretation of nature. It seemed impossible that one who should so paint sea and shore should be otherwise than grave and serious. Impossible, said Armorel. What we had called, in our stupidity, dullness, now became only seriousness. He took his art seriously. But then he began to write verses, and then I found that there was a new mind, not a part of the old mind, but a new mind altogether. It was a mind with a light vein of fancy and merriment. It was affectionate, sympathetic, and happy, and it seemed distinctly a feminine mind. I cannot tell you how difficult it was to fit that mind to my cousin Alec. It was like dressing him up in an ill-fitting woman's writing habit. And then he began those stories of his, and behold, another mind altogether. This time a worldly mind, cynical, sarcastic, distrustful, epigrammatic, and heartless, not at all a 286 pleasant mind. So that you see I had four different minds all going about in the same set of bones. The original Alec Fielding, handsome and commonplace, but a man of honor. The serious student of art. The light and gay-hearted poet, sparkling in his verses like a glass of champagne. And the cynical man of the world, who does not believe that there are any men of honor or any good women. Why, how can one man be at the same time for men? It is impossible. And now we have a fifth development of Alec. He has become, at the same time, a creature who marries a wife secretly, no one knows why, and hides her away for 3 years and then suddenly produces her. No one knows why. What does he hide her away for? Why does she consent to be hidden away? Then, the very day before he has got to produce his wife for all the world to see, I am perfectly certain that she herself forced him to take that step. He makes love to a young lady and formally asks her to marry him. Reconcile, if you can, all these contradictions. They cannot possibly be reconciled. We have heard of 7 devils entering into one man, but never of angels and devils mixed, my dear. Such a man cannot be explained, any more than the Lady Melusina herself. Do not let us try. As for me, I am going to forget the existence of Mr. Alec Fielding if I can. In order to do this, the quicker I mean to go home and stay there. Come and see me on the island of Samson, Philippa, but you must not bring your father, or he may be disappointed at the loss of his ancestral hall. To you, I shall not mind showing the little house where your ancestors lived. I should like very much, above all things, to see the place. I will bribe you to come. I have got a great silver punch bowl, old silver, such as you love for you. You shall have a choice of rings, a choice of snuff boxes. There is a roll of lace put away in the cupboard that would make you a lovely dress. It will be like the receiving of presents which we read of in the old books. I will try to come, Armorel, after the season. Armorel laughed. There is the difference between us, Philippa. You belong to the world and I do not. Oh, I will come back again some day and look at it again, but it will always be a strange land to me. You will leave London after the season. I am leaving it before the season. Come, however, when you can. Scilly is never too hot in summer nor too cold in winter. Instead of a carriage you shall have a boat, and instead of a coachman you shall have my boy Peter. We will sail about and visit the islands. We will carry our midday dinner with us, and in the evening we will play and sing. Nobody will call upon you there. There are no dinner parties and you need not bring an evening dress. The only audience to our music will be my old servants, Justinian and Dorcas his wife, and Chesson and Peter the boy. 287. There were no preparations to make. There was nothing to prevent Armorel from going away immediately. She asked Effie to go with her. She opened the subject in the evening, when she and her brother and Roland were all sitting together in her drawing room by the light of the fire alone, which she loved. They were thoughtful and rather silent, conscious of recent events. While we were in Regent Street this afternoon, Effie, said Armorel, I was thinking of the many happy faces that we met. The street seemed filled with happiness. I was wondering if it was all real. Are they all as happy as they seem? Is there no falsehood in their lives? The streets are filled with happy people. The theaters are filled with happy faces. Society shows none but happy faces. It ought to be the happiest of worlds. Have we alone fallen among pretenders and intriguers? They are gone from you, Armorel. Can you not forget them? Effie murmured. I seem to hear the murmuring voice of my companion always. She whispers in her caressing voice, Oh, my dear, he is so good and great. He is so full of truth and honor. Will you lend him £1,000? He thinks so highly of you. £1,000, £2,000. If I had it to lay at the feet of so much genius? And all the time she is his wife. And in my thoughts I am always hearing his voice, which I learned to hate, laying down a commonplace. And in my dreams I awake with a start, because he is making love to me while Zoe listens at the door. You must go away somewhere, said Roland. I shall go home to my own place. Effie, will you come with me? Go with you, oh, to Scilly. To the land of Lyonesse. I have arranged it all, dear. Archie shall have these rooms of mine to live in. You shall come with me. It is 2 years since you have been out of London. Your cheeks are pale. You want our sea breezes and our upland downs. Will you come with me, Effie? She held out her hand. I will go with you, said the girl, round the whole world if you order me. Then that is settled. Archie, you must stay because your future demands it. I met Mr. Stephenson yesterday. He told me that he is in great hopes about the play, and that, meantime, he will be able to put some work into your hands. You are always thinking about me, said Archie. Come to us in the summer, take your holiday on Samson. Oh, Effie, we will be perfectly happy. We will forget London and everything that has happened. Thank heaven the rubies are gone. I will send a piano there. We will carry with us loads of books and music. We will have a perfectly lovely time, with no one but ourselves. Roland will tell you how we will live. You will do nothing for a time, while you are drinking in the fresh air and 288 getting strong. Then you shall have ideas, great and glorious ideas, and you shall write far, far better poetry than any you have attempted yet. And meantime, we who have to remain behind, asked Roland, what shall we do when you are gone? It takes longer to get to Penzance than to Edinburgh, because the train ceases to run and begins to crawl as soon as it leaves Plymouth. The best way is to take the 9 o'clock train and to travel all night. Then you will probably sleep from Reading to Bristol, from Bristol to Exeter, and from Exeter to Plymouth. After that you will keep awake. In this way and by this train, Armorel and Effie traveled to Penzance. Effie fell asleep very soon, and remained asleep all night long, waking up somewhere between Lostwithiel and Marasian. Armorel sat up wakeful the whole night through, yet was not tired in the morning. Partly she was thinking of her stay in London, the crowning of her apprenticeship 5 years long. Nothing had happened as she had expected. Nothing in this life ever does. She had found the hero of her dreams defeated and fallen, a pitiable object. But he stood erect again, better armed and in better heart, his face turned upwards. Partly, another thing filled her heart and made her wakeful. Roland and Archie came with them to the station. "Shall I ever be permitted to visit again the land of Lyonesse?" whispered the former at the window just before the guard's whistle gave the signal for the train to start. She gave him her hand. "Goodbye, Roland, you will come to Scilly when you please as soon as you can." He held her hand. "I live only in that hope," he replied. The train began to move. He bent and kissed her fingers. She leaned forward. "Roland," she said, "I also live only in that hope." Chapter 26. Not the air, after all. The storm expended itself. The gale cannot go on blowing. The injured man cannot go on raging, cursing, or weeping. Alec Fielding became calm, yet a settled gloom rested like a dark cloud upon his front. He had lost something, a good part of his pristine confidence. That enviable quality which so much impresses itself upon others, called swagger, had been knocked out of him. Indeed, he had sustained a blow from which he would never wholly recover. Such a man could never get over the loss of such a fortune. His great-grandfather, so far as could be learned, lost his 289 fortune and began again, with cheerful heart. Alec would begin again, because he must, but with rage and bitterness. It was like being struck down by an incurable disease. It might be alleviated, but it would never be driven out. From time to time, in spite of the physicians, the patient writhes and groans in the agony of this disease. So from time to time will this man, until the end of time, groan and lament over the wicked waste and loss of that superb inheritance. Of course he disguised from himself. This is one of the things men always do hide away. The fact that he himself was part and parcel of the deed. He had destroyed himself by his own craft and cunning. Had he not placed his wife with Armorel under instructions to persuade and coax her into advancing money for his own purposes, the thing could never have happened. Henceforth, though the pair should have the desire of their hearts, though they should march on to wealth and success, though the wife should invent and contrive with the cleverness of 10 for the good of the firm, though the husband should grow more and more in the estimation of the outer world into the position of a master and an authority, between the two will lie the memory of fraud and crime, to divide them and keep them apart. On the day after the revelation, a thought came into the mind of the inheritor of the rubies. The thing that had happened unto him, could he cause it to happen unto another? Perhaps one remembers how, on learning that the rubies were to be given to the eldest grandson of the second daughter, he had dropped, limp and pale, into a chair. One may also remember how, on learning that no further investigation would be made, he recovered again. The fact was, you see, that Mr. Jagnal had made a little mistake. His searchers had altered the order of the three sisters. Frances, Alec Fielding's grandmother, was not the second but the third daughter. When the rubies were actually waiting and ready for him, it would have been foolish to mention that fact, especially as no further search was to be made, and the elder branch, wherever it was, would never know anything of the matter at all. Therefore, he then held his tongue. Now, on the other hand, the jewels being worthless, he thought, first of all, that it would look extremely scrupulous to inform Mr. Jagnal of the discovery that his grandmother was really the third daughter. Next, if the other branch should be discovered, the fortunate heir would, like himself, be raised to the heavens only to be dashed down again to earth. Let someone else, as well as himself, experience the agonies of that fall. He chuckled grimly as he considered the torments in store for this fortunate unknown cousin. As for danger to his wife, he considered rightly that there was none. The stones had been consigned to the bank by Armorel, and in her own name, she signed an order for their delivery to Mr. Jagnal. He had kept them in his safe. they 290 would certainly lie there some time before he found the new heir. Nay, they had been in his custody for 5 years before he gave them over formally to Armorel. Who could say when the robbery had been effected? Who would think of asking the bank whether during the short time the parcel was held in the name of Armorel it had been taken out? Clearly, the whole blame and responsibility lay with Mr. Jagnal himself. He would have a very curious problem to solve, namely, how the rubies had been changed in his own safe. "Well, Alec, come to take away your rubies?" asked Mr. Jagnal cheerily. "There they are in that safe." "No," he replied sadly. "I am grieved indeed to say that I have not come for the rubies. I shall never come for the rubies." "Why not?" "Because they are not for me. According to your instructions, I have no claim to them." "No claim." "I understand that Miss Rosevian intends to give these jewels to the first representative of the family of Robert Fletcher. That is to say, to the eldest grandchild of the first, second, or third daughter, as the case may be." "That is so." "Very well, the eldest daughter left no children. You therefore sent for me as the eldest and only grandchild of the second daughter." "I did." "Then I have to tell you that you are wrong. My grandmother was the third daughter." "Is it possible?" "Quite possible. She was the third daughter. I was not very accurately acquainted with that part of my genealogy, and the other day I could not have told you whether I came from the second or the third daughter. I have since ascertained the facts. It was the second daughter who went away to Australia or New Zealand or somewhere. I do not know anything at all about my cousins, but I think it very unlikely that there are none in existence." "Very unlikely. What proof have you that your grandmother was the second daughter?" "I have an old family Bible. I can show it you, if you like. In this has been entered the date of the birth, the place and date of baptism, the names of the sponsors of all three sisters. There is also a note on the second sister's marriage and on her emigration. I assure you there can be no doubt on the subject at all." "Oh, this is very disastrous, my dear boy. How could my people have made such a mistake? Alec, I feel for you, I do indeed." "It is most disastrous," Alec echoed with a groan. "I have been in the unfortunate position of a man who is suddenly put into 291 possession of a great fortune one day, and as suddenly deprived of it the next. Of course, as soon as I discovered the real facts, it became my duty to acquaint you with them." "By George," cried Mr. Jagnal, "if you had kept the facts to yourself, no one would ever have been any wiser. No one, because the transfer of the property is a sheer gift made by my client to you without any compulsion at all. It is a private transaction of which I should never have spoken to anyone. Well, Alec, I must not say that you are wrong. But many men, most men perhaps, with a less keen sense of honor than you, well, I say no more. Yet the loss and disappointment must be a bitter pill for you." "It is a bitter pill," he replied truthfully, "more bitter than you would suspect. You will have the satisfaction of feeling that you have behaved in this matter as a man of the strictest honor. I am very glad, considering all things, that I have not had the rubies in my own possession, even for a single hour. That is nothing, of course they would have been safe in your hands. Well, Alec, I am sorry for you. But you are young, you are clever, you are succeeding hand over hand. Pay a little more attention to your daily expenses, put down your horses and live for a few years quietly, and you will make your own fortune. Aye, a fortune greater far than was contained in this unlucky case of precious stones. I suppose you will renew your search, now, after the descendants of the second daughter." "I suppose we must. Do not forget that if there are no descendants, or, which is much the same thing, if we cannot find them in a reasonable time, I shall advise my client to transfer the jewels to the grandson of the third daughter. And I hope, my dear boy, I hope, I say, that we may never find those descendants." Alec departed, a little cheered by the consolation that he had passed on the disappointment to another. He went home and found his wife in the studio, apparently waiting for him. There were dark rings round her eyes. She had been weeping. Since the storm they had not spoken to each other. He sat down at his table. It was perfectly bare of papers, no sign of any work at all upon it, and waited for her to begin. "Is it not time," she asked, "that this should cease? You have reproached me enough, I think. Remember, we are on the same level. But whatever I have done, it was done for your sake. Whatever you have done was done for your own sake. Now, is there going to be an end to this situation?" "Is it not time," she asked, "that this should cease? Is it not time," she asked, "that this should cease?" He made a gesture of impatience. "Understand clearly, if I am to help you for the future, if I am going to pull you through this crisis, if I am to direct and 292 invent and combine for you, I mean to be treated with the semblance of kindness, the show of politeness at least." He sat up, moved by this appeal, which indeed was to his purse, that is, to his heart. "I say, my husband," she repeated, "you must understand me clearly. Again, what I have done was done for you, for you. Unless you agree to my conditions, it shall have been done for myself. I have £4,000 in the bank in my own name. You cannot touch it. I shall go away and live upon that money apart from you. And you shall have nothing, nothing, unless—" "Unless what?" He shook off his wrath with a mighty effort, as a sulky boy shakes off his sulks when he perceives that he must, and that instantly. He threw off his wrath and sat up with a wan semblance of a smile, a spectral smile, feebly painted on his lips. "Unless what, Zoe? My dear child, can you not make allowance for a man tried in this terrible fashion? I don't believe that any man was ever so mocked by fortune. I have been crushed. Yes, any terms, any condition you please. Let us forget the past. Come, dear, let us forget what has happened." He sprang to his feet and held out his arms. She hesitated a moment. "There is no other place for me now," she murmured. "We are on the same level. I am all yours now." Then she drew herself away and turned again to the table. "Come, Alec," she said, "to business. Time presses. Sit down and give me all your attention." Chapter 27. The Desert Island. The train proceeded slowly along the head of Mounts Bay, the waters of the high tide washing up almost to the sleepers on the line. Armorel let down the window and looked out across the bay, where the great vision of the guarded mount looks towards Namanco's and Bayona's hold. "See, Effie," she cried, "there is Mounts Bay, there is the Lizard, there is Penzance, and there, oh, there is the mount itself." St. Michael's Mount, always weird and mysterious, rose out of the waters wrapped in a thin white cloud, which the early sun had not yet been able to dissipate. I am told there is a very fine modern house upon the mount. I prefer not to believe that story. The place should always remain lonely, awful, full of mystery and wonder. There is also said to be a battery with guns upon it, 293 perhaps. But there are much more wonderful things than these to tell of the rock. Upon its highest point, those gallant miners, Captain Carricktack and Captain Caerleon, both of Boadicea Wheel, were wont to stand gazing out upon the stretch of waters, expecting the white sails and flashing oars of the Phoenician fleet, come to buy their white and precious tin, with strong wines from Syria and spices from the far east, and purple robes and bronze swords and spearheads, far better than those made by Flint Jack of the Ordnance Department. Hither came white-robed priests with flowing beards and solemn faces, faces supernaturally solemn, till they were alone upon the rock. Then perhaps an eyelid trembled. What they did I know not, nor did the people, but it was something truly awful, with majestic rites and ineffable mysteries and mumbo-jumbo of the very noblest. Here St. Michael himself once, in the ages of faith, condescended to appear. It was to a hermit. Such appearances were the prizes of the profession. Many went a-hermiting in hopes of getting a personal call from a saint who would otherwise have fought and lived and died quite like the rest of the world. And indeed, there were so many Cornish saints, such as St. Barian, St. Levin, St. Ives, St. Just, St. Kevern, St. Anthony, not to speak of St. Earth, St. Gulval, St. Austell, St. When all kindly disposed saints, anxious to encourage hermits and pleased to extend their own sphere of usefulness, that few of these holy men were disappointed. In the bay the blue water danced lightly in the morning breeze. The low, level sunlight shone upon Penzance on the western side. The fishing boats, back from the night's cruise, lay at their moorings, their brown sails lowered. The merchantmen and trading craft were crowded in the port. Beyond, the white curves chased each other across the water, and showed that outside, the breeze was fresh and the water lively. "We are almost at home," said Armorel. "There is our steamer lying off the quay. She looks very little, doesn't she? Only a short voyage of 40 miles. Oh, Effie, I do hope you are a good sailor, and we shall be at Hugh Town." "Are we really arrived? I believe I have slept the whole night through," said Effie, sitting up and pulling herself straight. "Oh, how lovely," as she too looked out of window. "Have you slept well, Armorel?" "I don't think I have been asleep much, but I am quite happy, Effie, dear, quite as happy as if I had been sound asleep all night. There are dreams, you know, which come to people in the night when they are awake as well as when they are asleep. I have been dreaming all night long, one dream which lasted all the night, one voice in my ears, one hand in mine. Oh, Effie, I have been quite happy." She showed her happiness by kissing her companion. "I am happier than I ever thought to be. Some day, perhaps, I shall be able to tell you why." 294. And then the train rolled into Penzance station. It was only 7:30 in the morning. The steamer would not start till 10:30. The girls sent their luggage on board, and then went to one of the hotels which stand all in a row facing the esplanade. Here they repaired the ravages of the night, which makes even a beautiful girl like Armorel show like beauty neglected, and then they took breakfast, and, in due time, went on board. Now behold, they had left in London a pitiless nor'easter and a black sky. They found at Penzance a clear blue overhead, light and sunshine, and a glorious northwesterly breeze. That is not, certainly, the quarter whose winds allay the angry waves and soothe the heaving surge. Not at all. It is when the wind is from the northwest that the waves rise highest and heaviest. Then the boat bound to silly tosses and rolls like a round cork, yet persistently forces her way westward. Diving, plowing, climbing, slipping, sliding, and rolling, shipping great seas and shaking them off again, always getting ahead somehow. Then those who come forth at the start with elastic step and lofty looks lie low and wish that some friend would prod Father Time with a bradawl and make him run. And those who enjoy the sea, sir, and are never sick, are fain to put down the pipe with which they proudly started and sink into nothingness. For taking the conceit out of a young man, there is nothing better than the voyage from Penzance to Scilly, especially if it be a tripper's voyage. That is, back again the same day. There is, on the Scilly boat, a cabin, or rather a roofed and walled apartment, within which is the companion to the saloon. Nobody ever goes into the saloon, though it is magnificent with red velvet, but round this roofed space there is a divan or sofa. And here lie the weak and fearful, and all those who give in and oppose no further resistance to the soft influences of ocean. Effie lay here, white of cheek and motionless. She had never been on the sea before, and she had a rough and tumbling day to begin with, and the sea in glory and grandeur. But all was lost and thrown away so far as she was concerned. Armorel stood outside, holding to the ropes with both hands. She was dressed in a waterproof. The spray flew over her. Her cheek was wet with it. Her eyes were bright with it. The heavy seas dashed over her. She laughed and shook her waterproof. As for wet boots, what Solonian regardeth them? And the wind, how it blew through and through her. How friendly was its rough welcome. How splendid to be once more on rough water, the boat fighting against a head wind and rolling waves. How glorious to look out once more upon the wild, ungoverned waves. It was not until the boat had rounded the point and was well out in the open that these things became really enjoyable. Away south stood the Wolf with its tall lighthouse. You could see the white waves boiling and fighting around it and climbing halfway 295 up. Beyond the Wolf, a great ocean steamer plunged through the water outward bound. Presently there came flying past them the most beautiful thing ever invented by the wit of man or made by his craft, a three-masted schooner under full sail, all sails spread, not forging slowly along under poverty-stricken stays which proclaim an insufficient crew, but flying over the water under all her canvas. She was a French boat of Havre. "There is Scilly, miss," said the steward, pointing out to sea. Yes, low down the land lay, west by north. It looked like a cloud at first. Every moment it grew clearer, but always low down. What one sees at first are the eastern shores of St. Agnes and Gug, St. Mary's, and the Eastern Islands. They are all massed together so that the eye cannot distinguish one from the other, but all seem to form continuous land. By degrees they separated. Then one could discover the South Channel and the North Channel. When the tide is high and the weather fair, the boat takes the former, at low tide the latter. Today the captain chose the South Channel, and now they were so near the land that Armorel could make out Portholic Bay, and her heart beat, though she was going home to no kith or kin, and to nothing but her familia, her serving folk. Next she made out Giant's Castle, then the Old Town, then Penini's Head, black and threatening. And now they were so near that every cairn and every boulder upon it could be made out clearly, and one could see the water rising and falling at the foot of the rock, and hear it roaring as it was driven into the dark caves, and the narrow places where the rocks opened out and made make-believe of a port or haven of refuge. And now Porthcressa Bay, and now the garrison, and smooth water. Then Armorel brought out Effie, pale and languid. "Now, dear, the voyage is over. We are in smooth water and shall be in port in 10 minutes. Look round, it is all over. We are in the road. And over there, see, with his twin hills, is my dear old Samson." There was a little crowd on the quay waiting to see the boat arrive. All of them, boatmen, fishermen, and flower farmers' men, to say nothing of those representing the interests of commerce, pressed forward to welcome Armorel. Everybody remembered her, but now she was a grand young lady who had left them a simple child. They shook hands with her and stepped aside. And then Peter came forward, looking no older but certainly no younger, and Armorel shook hands with him too. He had the boat alongside, and in 5 minutes more the luggage was on board, the mast was up, the sail set, and Armorel was sitting in her old place, the strings in her hand, while Peter held the rope and looked out ahead, shading his eyes with his right hand in the old familiar style. "It is as if I never left home at all," said Armorel. "I sailed like this with Peter yesterday and the day before." "You've growed," said Peter. after an inquiring gaze, being for the moment satisfied that there was nothing ahead, and that 296 there was no immediate danger of shipwreck on the Nut Rock or Green Island. I am 5 years older, Armorel replied. It's been a rare harvest this year, he went on. I thought we should never come to the end of the daffodils. Now I am at home indeed, said Armorel, when I hear the old talk about the flowers. Tomorrow, Effie, I will show you our little fields where we grow all the lovely flowers, the anemone and jonquil, the narcissus and the daffodil. This afternoon, when we have had dinner and rested a little, I will take you all round Samson and show you the glories of the place. They are principally views of other islands. But there is a headland and 2 bays, and there are the tombs of the kings, the ancient kings of Lyonesse. In one of them Roland lay. She blushed and turned away her head. Henceforth, she understood, this was a name to be treated with more reverence. Found a golden torque, which you have seen me wear. And oh, my dear, you shall be so happy. The sea breeze shall fill your soul with music. The sea birds shall sing to you. The very waves shall lap on the shore in rhyme and rhythm for you. And the sun of Scilly, which is so warm and glowing, but never too warm, shall color that pale cheek of yours, and fill out that spare form. And oh, Effie, I hope you will not get tired of Samson and of me. We are 2 maidens living on a desert island. There is nobody to talk to except each other. We shall wander about together as we list. Oh, I am so happy, Effie. And oh, my dear, I am so hungry. The boat ran up over the white sand of the beach. They jumped out, and Armorel, leaving Peter to bring along the trunks by the assistance of the donkey, led the way over the southern hill to Holy Farm. Effie, she said, I have been tormented this morning with the fear that everything would look small. I was afraid that my old memories, a child's memories, would seem distorted and exaggerated. Now I am not in the least afraid. Samson has got all his acres still. He looks quite as big and quite as homely as ever he did. The boulders are as huge, the rocks are as steep. I remember every boulder, Effie, and every bush, and every patch of brown fern, and almost every trailing branch of bramble. How glorious it is here. How the sea breeze sweeps across the hill. It comes all the way from America, across the Atlantic. Effie, I declare you are looking rosier already. I must sing, I must indeed, I always used to sing. She threw up her arms in the old gesture, and sang a loud and clear and joyous burst of song, sang like the lark springing from the ground because it cannot choose but sing. I used to jump too, but I do not want somehow to jump any more. Ah, Effie, I was quite certain there would be some falling off, but I could not tell in what direction. I can no longer jump. That comes of getting old. To be sure, I did not jump 297 when I took Roland Lee about the islands. Sometimes I sang, but I was ashamed to jump. Here we are upon the top. It is not a mighty Alp, is it? But it serves. Look round, but only for a moment because Chesson will have dinner waiting for us, and you are exhausted by your bad passage. You poor thing. This is our way down the narrow lanes. Here our fields begin. They are each about as big as a dinner table. See the tall hedges to keep off the north wind? There is a field of narcissus, but there are no more flowers, and the leaves are dying away. This way, ah, here we are. The house did not look in the least mean, or any smaller than Armorel expected. She became even prouder of it. Where else could one find a row of palms, with great verbena trees and prickly pear and aloes, not to speak of the creepers over the porch, the gilt figurehead, and the big ship's lantern hung in the porch. Within, the sunlight poured into the low rooms, all of them looking south, and made them bright. In the room where formerly the ancient lady passed her time in the hooded chair, the lady passed away and the chair gone, the cloth was spread for dinner, and in the porch were gathered the serving folk. Justinian not a day older, Dorcas unchanged, and Chesson thin and worn, almost as old to look at as her mother. And as soon as the greetings were over, and the questions asked and answered, and the news told of the harvest and the prices, and the girls had run all over the house, Chesson brought in the dinner. It is a blessed thing that we must eat, because upon this necessity we have woven so many pretty customs. We eat a welcome home, we eat a Godspeed, we eat together because we love each other, we eat to celebrate anything and everything. Above all, upon such an event as the return of one who has long been parted from us, we make a little banquet. Thought and pains had been bestowed upon the dinner which Chesson placed upon the table. Dorcas stood by the table, watching the effect of her cares. First there was a chicken roasted, with bread crumbs, a bird blessed with a delicacy of flavor, and a tenderness of flesh, and a willingness to separate at the joints unknown beyond the shores of Scilly. Dorcas said so, and the girls believed it. Effie, at least, willing to believe that nothing in the world was so good as in this happy realm of Queen Armorel. Dorcas also invited special attention to the home-cured ham, which was, she justly remarked, mild as a peach. The potatoes served in their skins were miracles of mealiness. Had Armorel met with such potatoes out of Samson? Had the young lady, her visitor, ever seen or dreamed of such potatoes? There was spinach grown on the farm, freshly cut, redolent of the earth, fragrant with the sea breeze. And there was homemade bread, sweet, wholesome, and firm. There was also placed upon the table a brown George, filled with home-brewed, furnished with a head snow-white, venerable, and benevolent, such 298 a head as not all the breweries of Burton, or even of the whole House of Lords combined, could furnish. Alas, that head smiled in vain upon this degenerate pair. They would not drink the nut-brown, sparkling beer. It was not wasted, however. Peter had it when he brought the packass to the porch laden with the last trunk. Nor did they so much as remove the stopper from the decanter containing a bottle of the famous blackberry wine, the primest crew of Samson, opened expressly for this dinner. Yet this was not wasted either, for Justinian, who knew a glass of good wine, took it with 3 successive suppers. Is it beneath the dignity of history to mention pudding? Consider, pudding is festive. Pudding contributes largely to the happiness of youth. Armorel and Effie tackled the pudding as only the young and hungry can. And this day, perhaps from the promptings of simple piety, being rejoiced that Armorel was back again, perhaps from some undeveloped touch of poetry in her nature, Chesson placed upon the table that delicacy seldom seen at the tables of the unfortunate great, who really get so few of the good things, known as grateful pudding. You know the ingredients of this delightful dish? More. To mark the day, Chesson actually made it with cream instead of milk. Tomorrow, said Armorel, fired with emulation, I will show you, Effie, what I can do in the way of puddings and cakes. I always used to make them, and unless my lightness of hand has left me, I think you will admire my tea cakes, if not my puddings. Roland Lee praised them both, but to be sure he was so easily pleased. He liked everything on the island. He even liked, oh, Effie, he liked me. That was truly wonderful, Armorel. Now, Effie dear, lie down in this chair beside the window. You can look straight out to sea. That is Bishop's Rock with its lighthouse. Lie down and rest, and I will talk to you about Silly and Samson and my own people. Or I will play to you if you like. I am glad the new piano has arrived safely. I like to look round this beautiful old room. How strange it is. I have never seen such a room with things so odd. They are all things from foreign lands, and things cast up by the sea. If you like odd things, I will show you, presently, my punch bowls and the snuff boxes and watches and things. I did not give all of them to the care of Mr. Jaginal 5 years ago. It is wonderful, it is lovely, as if one could ever tire of such a place. Lie down, dear, and rest. You have had such a tossing about that you must rest after it, or you may be ill. It promises to be a fine and clear evening. If it is, we will go out by and by and see the sun set behind the western rocks. We are on a desert island, Effie murmured obediently, lying down and closing her eyes. Nobody here but ourselves. We can 299 do exactly what we please. Think of it, Armorel. Nobody wants any money here, nobody jostles his neighbor, nobody tramples upon his friend. It is like a dream of the primitive life. With improvements, dear Effie. My ancestors used to lead the primitive life when Samson was a holy island and the cemetery of the kings of Lyonesse. They went about barefooted and they were dressed in skins. They fought the wolves and bears, and if they did not kill the creatures, why, the creatures killed them. They were always fighting the nearest tribe. And they sucked the marrow bones, Effie, think of that. Oh, we have made a wonderful advance in the civilization of Samson Island. Chapter 28. At home. I am so very pleased to see you here, Mr. Stephenson. Mrs. Fielding welcomed him with her sweetest and most gracious smile. To attract our few really sincere critics, there are so many incompetent pretenders, as well as the leaders in all the arts is my great ambition. And now you have come. You are very kind, said Dick, blushing. I dare say he is a really great critic at the hours when he is not a most superior clerk in the Admiralty. At the same time, one is not often told the whole, the naked, the gratifying truth. To have a salon, that is my desire, to fill it with men of light and leading. Now you have broken the ice, you will come often, will you not? Every Sunday evening at least. My husband will be most pleased to find you here. Again, you are very kind. We saw you yesterday afternoon at that poor boy's matinee, did we not? The crush was too great for us to exchange a word with you. What do you think of the piece? I always liked it. I was present, you know, at the reading that night. Oh yes, the reading, Armorel Rosevian's reading. Yes, though that hardly gave one an idea of the play. The piece went very well indeed. I should think it will catch on, but of course the public are very capricious. One never knows whether they will take to a thing or not. To my mind there is every prospect of success. In any case, young Wilmot has shown that he possesses poetical and dramatic powers of a very high order indeed. He seems the most promising of the men before us at present. That is, if he keeps up to the standard of this first effort. Of course we must discount some of the promise. You have heard, for instance, that my husband lent his advice and assistance. He said so after the reading, did he not? 300. Nobody knows, Mr. Stephenson. She clasped her hands and turned those eyes of limpid blue upon the young man. How many successes my husband has helped to make by his timely assistance. What he did to this particular play I do not know, of course. During the reading and during yesterday's performance, I seemed to hear his voice through all the acts. It haunted me, but Alex said nothing. He sat in silence, smiling, as if he had never heard the words before. Oh, it is wonderful, and now not a word of recognition. You help people to climb up and then they pretend to have got up by their own exertions. Not that Alec expects gratitude or troubles himself much about these things, but naturally I feel hurt. And oh, Mr. Stephenson, what must be the conscience of the man? How can he bear to live, who goes about the world pretending? She shook her head sadly, pretending to have written other men's works. Men will do anything, I suppose. This kind of assistance ought, however, to be recognized. I will make some allusion to it in my notice of the play. Meantime, if I can read the future at all, Master Archie Wilmot's fortune is made, and he will. Mr. Roland Lee showed his picture that night. He had just come out of a madhouse, had he not? Not quite that. He failed and dropped out. But what he did with himself or how he lived for 3 years I do not exactly know. He has returned and never alludes to that time. And he exactly imitates my husband, I am told. No, no, not exactly. The resemblance is close, only an experienced critic, oh, Dick Stephenson, could discern the real differences of treatment. Mrs. Fielding smiled. But I knew him before he disappeared, and I assure you his method was then the same as it is now, very much like your husband's style, yet with a difference. I am glad there is a difference. An artist ought at least to have a style of his own. You know, I suppose that Armorel has gone away. I have heard so. It became possible for us at last to acknowledge things, so I joined my husband. Armorel went home, to her own home in the Scilly Islands. She took Effie Wilmot with her. Indeed, the girl's flatteries have become necessary to her. I fear she was unhappy, poor child. I sometimes think, Mr. Stephenson, that she saw too much of Alec. Of course he was a good deal with us, and I could not tell her the whole truth, and girls' heads are easily turned, you know, when genius seems to be attracted. Poor Armorel, she sighed, playing with her fan. Time, I dare say, will help her to forget. It is a pity, said Dick Stephenson, changing the subject because he did not quite believe this version. It is a pity that Mr. 301 Fielding, who can give such admirable advice to a young dramatist, does not write a play himself. Hush, she looked all round, nobody is listening. Alec has written a play, Mr. Stephenson. It is a 3-act drama, a tragedy strong, oh, so strong, so strong. She clasped her hands again, letting the fan dangle from her wrist. So effective, I don't know when I have seen a play with more striking situations. It is accepted, but not a word has yet been said about it. May I say something about it? Will you let me be the first to announce it, and to give some little account of it? I will ask Alec. If he consents, I will tell you more about the play. And my dear Mr. Stephenson, you, one of our old friends, really ought to do some work for the paper. I have not been asked, he replied, coloring, for he was still at that stage when the dramatic critic is flattered by being invited to write for a paper. You shall be. How do you like the paper? It has so completely changed its character, one would think that the whole staff had been changed. Everybody reads it now, and everybody takes it, I believe. The circulation has gone up by leaps and bounds. It is really wonderful. But Mr. Stephenson, here is one of the reasons. Give me a little credit, poor me. I cannot write, but I can look on, and I have a pair of eyes, and I can see things. Now, I saw that Alec was killing himself with writing. Every week a story, also every week a poem, every week an original article, and then those notes. I made him stop. I said to him, stamp your own individuality on every line of the paper, but write it yourself no longer. Edit it. You see, it is not as if Alec had to prove his powers. He has proved them already. So he can afford to let others do the hard work while he adds the magic touch, the touch of genius, that touch that goes to the heart. And the result you see. Yes, the brightest, cleverest, most varied paper that exists. With a large staff. Formerly, Alec and one or two others formed the whole staff. Well, Mr. Stephenson, I know that Alec is going to ask you to do some of the dramatic criticism, and if you consent, I shall be very pleased to have been the first to mention it. It will be understood from this conversation that the new methods of managing the business of the firm were essentially different from the old. The paper had taken a new departure. It prospered. It was understood that the editor put less of his own work into it. But the articles, verses, and stories were all unsigned, and no one could tell exactly which were his papers. Therefore, as all were clever, his reputation remained on the same level. Also, there was a thick and solid mass of advertisements each week, which represented public confidence widespread and deep. Give 302 me, cries the proprietor of a paper, the confidence of advertisers. That is proof enough of popularity. Mrs. Fielding moved to another part of the room and began to talk with another man. My husband, she said, has prepared a little surprise for us this evening. I say for us because I have not seen what he has to show since it came back from the frame maker. It is a picture, then. A picture in a new style. He has abandoned for a time his coast and seashore studies. This is in quite a new style. I hope that it will be liked as well as his old. He is indeed a wonderful man. Is he not? She laughed, a low and musical, a contented and a happy laugh. Is he not? You never know what Alec may be going to do next. Mrs. Fielding's Sundays have already become a great success. Such a success as a woman of the world may desire, and a clever woman can achieve. There is once more, as she says proudly, a salon in London. If it does not quite take the lead that she pretends in art and letters, it is always full. Men who go there once go again. They find the kind of entertainment that they like, plenty of people for talk to begin with. Then every man is made by the hostess to feel that his own position in the literary and artistic world is above even his own estimate. That is soothing. In fact, the note of the salon is appreciation, not mutual admiration, as the envious do enviously affirm. Moreover, everybody in the salon has done something, perhaps not much, but something. And then the place is one where the talk is delightfully free, almost as free as in a club smoking room. Every evening, again, there is some kind of entertainment, but not too much, because the salon has to keep up its reputation for conversation, and music destroys conversation. Let us, said Mrs. Fielding, revive the dead art of conversation. Let the men in this room make their reputation as they did 100 years ago for brilliant talk. I have not heard that Mrs. Fielding has yet developed a talker like the mighty men of old. Perhaps one will come along later. Those, however, who have looked into the subject with an ambition in that line, and have ascertained the nature of the epigrams, repartees, retorts, quips, jokes, and personal observations attributed to Messrs. Douglas Jerrold and his brilliant circle are doubtful of reviving that art except in a modified and a greatly chastened, even in effeminate form. The entertainments provided by Mrs. Fielding consisted of a little music or a little singing, always by a young and little-known professional. There was generally something in the fashion, young lady with a banjo or a tum-tum, or anything which was popular, young gentleman to whistle, young actor or actress to give a character sketch, sometimes a picture sent in for private exhibition, 303, sometimes a little poem printed for the evening and handed about. One never knew what would be done. But always the hostess would be gracious, winning, caressing, smiling, and talking incessantly. Always she would be gliding about the room, making her friends talk, the happy wife of the most accomplished and most versatile man in London. And always that illustrious genius himself, calm and grave, taking art seriously, laying down with authority the opinion that should be held to a circle who surrounded him. The circle consisted chiefly of women and of young men. Older men, with that reluctance to listen to the voice of authority which distinguishes many after 30, held aloof and talked with each other. Alec Fielding, said one of them, expressing the general opinion, may be a mighty clever fellow, but he talks like a dull book. You've heard it all before, and you've heard it better put. It's wonderful that such a clever dog should be such a dull dog. They came, however, in spite of the dullness. The wife would have carried off 100 dull dogs. As in certain earlier and better-known circles, the men greatly outnumbered the women. I am not in love with my own sex, said Mrs. Fielding, quite openly. I prefer the society of men. But some women came of their own accord, and some were brought by their fathers, husbands, lovers, and brothers. No one could say that ladies kept away from Mrs. Fielding's Sunday evenings. This evening, the principal thing was the uncovering of a new picture, Mr. Fielding's new picture. At 10 o'clock the painter-poet, in obedience to a whisper from his wife, moved slowly, followed by his ring of disciples, male and female, all young, a callow brood, to the upper end of the room, where was an easel. A picture stood upon it, but a large green cloth was thrown over it. I thought, said Mr. Alec Fielding, in his most dignified manner, that you would like to see this picture before anyone else. It is one of the little privileges of our Sunday evenings to show things to each other. Some of you may remember, he said, with the true humility of genius, that I have exhibited, hitherto, chiefly pictures of coast scenery. I have always been of opinion that a man should not confine himself to one class of subjects. His purchasing public may demand it, but the true artist should disregard all and any considerations connected with money. Your true artist hasn't always got a weekly journal to fall back upon, growled a young ARA who did stick to one class of subjects. He had been brought there. As a rule, artists are not found at Mrs. Fielding's, nor do they rally round the cleverest man in London. I say, repeated the really great man, that the wishes of buyers must not be weighed for an instant in comparison with the true interests of art. 3:4. Like a copybook, murmured the associate. Therefore, I have attempted a new line altogether. I have made new studies. They have cost a great deal of time and trouble and anxious thought. It is quite a new departure. I anticipate beforehand what you will say at first. But ecolo. He lifted the green cloth. At the same moment his wife turned up a light that stood beside the painting. He disclosed a really very beautiful painting, a group of trees beside a shallow pool of water. The trees were leafless. A little snow lay at their roots. The pool was frozen over, there was a little mist over the ground, and between the trunks one saw the setting sun. He disclosed a really very beautiful painting. He disclosed a really very beautiful painting. By Jove, it's a Belgian picture, cried the associate. And indeed, you may see hundreds of pictures exactly in this style in the Brussels galleries, where the artists are never tired of painting the flat country and the trees, at every season and under every light. Precisely, said the painter. That is the remark which I anticipated. Let us call it, if you like, a Belgian picture. The subject is English, the treatment, perhaps, Belgian. For my part, I am not too proud to learn something from the Belgians. The associate touched the man nearest him, an artist, not yet an associate, by the arm. Ghosts, he murmured, spooks and ghosts. Spectres, replied the other, phantoms and bogies. A haunted studio, said the associate. My knees totter, my hair stands on end. I tremble, I have goose flesh, replied his friend. Let us run to the Society of Psychical Research, whispered the associate. Let us swiftly run, said the other. They fled swiftly and softly. Only Mrs. Fielding observed their flight. She also gathered from their looks the subject of their talk, and she resolved that she would not, henceforth, encourage artists at her Sunday evenings. She turned to Dick Stephenson. You, Mr. Stephenson, she said, who are a true critic and understand work, tell me what you think of the picture. The great critic, he was not really a humbug. He was very fond of looking at pictures. Only, you see, he was not an artist. Advanced to the front, bent forward, considered a few moments, and then spoke. A dexterous piece of work, truly dexterous in the highest sense, full of observation, intelligently and poetically rendered, careful, truthful, with intense feeling. I could hardly have believed that any English painter was capable of work in this genre. The people all gazed upon the canvas with rapt admiration. They murmured that it was wonderful and beautiful. Then 3:05 Alec covered up the picture, and somebody began to play something. Alec, said Mr. Jagnal, who seldom came to these gatherings, I congratulate you. Your picture is very good, and in a new style. When will you be content to settle down in the jog-trot that the British public love? Let me change my subject sometimes. When I am tired of trees, I will go back, perhaps, to the coast and sea pieces. Ah, but take care. There's a fellow coming along. By the way, Alec, I have made a discovery lately. What is it? About those rubies. Why, man, for Alec turned suddenly pale, you remember that business still. Indeed I do, he replied, and I am not likely to forget it in a hurry. My dear boy, to paint such pictures is worth many such bags of precious stones, if you will only think so. What's your discovery? Alec asked hoarsely. Well, I have found, quite accidentally, the eldest grandchild of the second daughter, your great-aunt. Oh, again he changed color. Then you will, I suppose, hand him over the things. Yes, certainly, I have sent for him. He does not yet know what I want him for, and I shall give him the jewels in obedience to Armorel's instructions. Alec, I have always been desperately sorry for your unfortunate discovery. It caused a pang, certainly, and who is my cousin? Well, Alec, I will not tell you until I have made quite sure. Not that there is any doubt, but I had better not. You will perhaps like to make his acquaintance. Perhaps you know him already, I don't say mind. Well, sir, said Alec, when he realizes the extent and value of this windfall, I expect he will show a depth of gratitude which will astonish you. I do, indeed. Zoe, he said, when everybody was gone, are you quite sure that in the matter of those rubies your action can never be discovered? Anything may be discovered, but I believe that it will be difficult. Why? Because my cousin, the grandson of Robert Fletcher's second daughter, has been found, and he will receive the jewels tomorrow. And when he finds out what they are worth, then, Alec, it will be asked who had the jewels. They were taken to the bank by Mr. Jagnal and taken thence to Mr. Jagnal. What have I to do with them? Don't think about it, Alec. It has nothing to do with us. No suspicion 306 can possibly attach to us. Forget the whole business. The evening went off very well. The picture struck everybody very much, and I've laid the foundation for curiosity about the play. And as for the paper, I was going into the accounts this morning. It is paying at the rate of 3,000 a year. Alec, you have never until now been really and truly the cleverest man in London. Chapter 29. The Trespass Offering. It was a day in midwinter. Over the adjacent island of Great Britain there was either a yellow fog, or a white fog, or a black fog. Perhaps there was no fog at all, but a black east wind, or there was melting snow, or there was cold sleet and rain. Whatever there was, to be out of doors brought no joy, and the early darkness was tolerable because it closed and hid and put away the day. In the archipelago of Scilly, the sky was bright and clear. The sea was blue, except in the shallow places where it was a light transparent green. The waves danced and sparkled. Round the ledges of the rocks the white foam rolled and leaped. The sunshine was warm, the air was fresh. The girls stood on the northern cairn of Samson. They had been on the island now for 8 months. For the greater part of that time they were alone. Only in the summer Archie came to pay them a visit. His play was accepted. It would probably be brought out in January, perhaps not till later, according to the success of the piece then running. Meantime, he had got introductions, thanks to Armorel's evening, and now found work enough to keep him going on 1 or 2 journals, were his occasional papers. The papers of a young and clever man feeling his way to style were taken and published. And he was, of course, writing another play. He was in love with another heroine, happy if he knew his own happiness in starting on that rare career in which a man is always in love, and blamelessly, even with the knowledge of his wife, with a succession of the loveliest and most delightful damsels, country girls and princesses, lasses of the city and of the milking path, Dolly and Molly and stately Kate, and the Duchess of Dainty Device. As yet, he had only lost his heart to 2, and was now raving over the second of his sweethearts. One such youth I have known and followed as he passed from the 20s to the 30s, to the 40s, even to the 50s. He has always loved one girl after the other. He knows not how life can exist unless a man is in love. He is a mere slave and votary of love, yet never with a goddess of the earth. He loves an image, a simulacrum, a phantom, and he looks on with joy and satisfaction, yea, the tears of happiness rise to his eyes when he sees that phantom at the last, after many cruel delays, fondly embraced, not by himself, but by another phantom. Happy lover, so to have lost the substance, yet to be satisfied with the shadow. 307. Except for Archie's visit, they had no guests all through the summer. The holiday visitors mostly arrive at Hugh sail across to Tresco Gardens and back, some the same day, some the next day, thinking they have seen Scilly. None of them land on Samson. Few there are who sail about the outer islands where Armorel mostly loved to steer her boat. The 2 girls spent the whole time alone with each other for company. I do not know whether the literature of the country will be enriched by Effie's sojourn in Lyonesse, but one hopes. At least she lost her pale cheeks and thin form. She put on roses and she filled out. She became almost as strong as Armorel, almost as dexterous with the sheet, and almost as handy with the oar. But of verses I fear that few came to her. With the best intentions, with piles of books, these 2 maidens idled away the summer, basking on the headlands, lying among the fern, walking over the downs of Bryher and St. Martin's, sailing in and out among the channels, bathing in Porth Bay, or off the lonely beach of Ganley in the eastern group. Always something to see or something to do. Once they ventured to sail by themselves. A parlous voyage, but the day was calm, all the way round Bishop's Rock and back. Another time they sailed. But this time they took Peter among the dogs of Scilly, climbed up on Black Rosevean, and stood on Gorrigan with the cruel teeth. Once, on a very calm day in July, they even threaded the narrow channel between the twin rocks known together as the Scilly. Always there was something new to do or to see. So the morning and the afternoon passed away, and there was nothing left but tea and a little music, and a stroll in the moonlight or beneath the stars, and a talk together, and so to bed. And if there came a rainy day, the cakes to make and the puddings to compose. A happy, lazy, idle, profitable time. We have been 6 months here and more, Effie, said Armorel. They were sitting in the sunshine in the sheltered orchard among the wrinkled and twisted old apple trees. What next? When shall we think of going back to London? We must not stay here altogether lest we rust. We will go back, shall we? As soon as the short, dark days are over and we will make a new departure somehow, but in what direction I do not quite know. Shall we travel? Shall we cultivate society? What shall we do? We will go back to London as soon as Archie's play is produced. Dear Armorel, I do not want ever to go away. I should like to stay here with you always and always. It has been a time of peace and quiet. Never before have I known such peace and such quiet, but we must go. We must go while the spell of the place is still upon us. Perhaps if we were to stay too long, nature does not expect us to outstay her welcome, not that her welcome is exhausted yet. But if we go away, shall we ever come back? And if so, will it be quite the same? Nothing ever returns, said Armorel the sage. We shall go 3 ways away and we shall come back again, and there will be changes. Everything changes daily. The very music of the sea changes from day to day, but it is always music. My old grandmother in the great chair used to hold her hand to her ear, so, to catch the lapping of the waves and the washing of the tide among the rocks. It was the music that she had known all her life. But the tune was different, the words of the song in her head were different, the key was changed, but always the music. Oh, my dear, I never tire of this music. We will go away, Effie. We must not stay too long here, lest we fall in love with solitude and renounce the world. But we will come back and hear the same music again with a new song. We must go back. She sighed. 8 months we must go and see Archie's play. Archie, it will be a proud and glorious day for him if it succeeds. It must succeed. And not a word or a sign all this time from Roland. What is he doing? Why? She stopped. Effie laid a hand on hers. You have been restless for some days, Armorel, she said. Yes, yes, I do not doubt him. No, no, he has returned to himself. He can never, never again, I do not doubt him. She sprang to her feet. Oh, Effie, I do not doubt, but sometimes I fear. What do I fear? Why, I know there may be failure, but there can never again be disgrace. You think of him so much, Armorel, said Effie, with a touch of jealousy. I cannot think of him too much. She looked out upon the sunlit sea at their feet, talking as one who talks to herself. How can I think of him too much? I have thought of him every day for 5 years, every day. I love him, Effie. How can you think too much of the man you love? Suppose I were to hear that he had failed again. That would make no difference. Suppose he were to sink low, low, deep down among the worst of men, that would make no difference. I love the man as he may be, as he shall be, by the help of God, if not in this world, then in the world to come. I love him, Effie. She stopped because her voice choked with a sob. The strength of her passion, not for nothing was the Castilian invader wrecked upon Scilly, frightened the other girl. She had never dreamed of such a passion, yet she knew that Armorel thought continually of this man. She did not dare to speak. She looked on with clasped hands in silence. Armorel softened again. The tumult of her heart subsided. She turned to Effie and kissed her. Forgive me, dear, you know now, but you have guessed already. Let us say no more, but I must see him soon. I must go to see him if he cannot come to see me. Let us go over the hill. This little orchard is like a hothouse this morning. When they reached the top of the hill, they saw the steamer 309 from Penzance rounding Bar, Point on St. Mary's, and coming through the North Channel. They have had a fine passage, said Armorel. The boat must have done it in 3 hours. I wonder if she brings anything for us. It is too early for the magazines. I wrote for those books, but I doubt if there has been time. And I wrote to Philippa, but I do not expect a letter in reply by this post. And I wrote to Archie, but I do not know whether I shall get a letter today. Suppose there should come a visitor. Few visitors come to Scilly in the winter, and none to Samson. We are alone on our desert island, Effie. See, the steamer is entering the port. The tide is low. She cannot get alongside the quay. It is such a fine day that it is a pity we did not sail over this morning and meet the steamer. There goes the steam launch from Tresco. It is quite a mile from Samson to the quay of Hugh Town. But the air was so clear that Armorel, whose eyes were as good as any ordinary field glass, could plainly make out the agitation and bustle on the quay caused by the arrival of the steamer. The boat always carries my thoughts back to London, said Armorel. And we have been talking about London, have we not? When I was a child, the boat came into the road out of the unknown, and next day went back to the unknown. What was the other side like? I filled it up with the vague splendor of a child's imagination. The unknown to me was like the sunrise or the sunset. Well, now I know. The poets say that knowledge makes us no happier. I think they are quite wrong. It is always better to know everything, even though it's little joy. To feel that heaven is farther off than when one was a boy. There is a boat, she went on after a while. She is putting out from the port. I wonder what boat it is. Perhaps she is going to Bryher, or to St. Martin's, or to St. Agnes. It is not the lighthouse boat. She is sailing as if for Samson, but she cannot be coming here. What a lovely breeze. She would be here in a quarter of an hour. I suppose she must be going to Tresco. See what comes of living on a desert island. We are actually speculating about the voyage of a sailing boat across the road. Effie, we are little better than village gossips. You shall marry Mr. Paul Pry. She looks very pretty, said Effie, heeling over with the wind wherever she is going. They are steering south of Green Island, said Armorel. That is very odd. If she had been making for Bryher or Tresco, she would leave Green Island on the lay and steer up the channel past Puffin. I really believe that she is coming to Samson. I 310 expect there is a parcel for us. Let us run down to the beach, Effie. We shall get there just in time. They ran down the hill. As the boatman lowered the sail and the boat grounded on the firm white sand of the beach, the girls arrived. The boat brought, however, no packet. Oh, cried Effie, it is Roland Lee. It was none other than that young man of whom they had been speaking. Armorel changed color. She blushed a rosy red. Then she recovered quickly and stepped forward as Roland leaped out upon the sand. Welcome back to Samson, she said, giving him her hand with her old frankness. We expected you to come, but we did not know when. May I stay? He murmured, taking her hand and looking into her face. You know yourself, she replied. He made answer by shouldering his portmanteau. No new road has been made, I suppose, he said. Shall I go first? How well I remember the way over the hill. Samson has changed little since I was here last. He led the way, all laughing and chatting as if his visit was expected, and as if it were the most natural thing in the world and the most common thing to run down to the beach and meet a morning caller from London town. But Effie, who was as observant as a poet ought to be, saw how Roland kept looking round as he led, as if he would be still catching sight of Armorel. Come, Dorcas, cried Armorel when they arrived at the house. Come, Chesson, here is Mr. Roland Lee. You have not forgot Mr. Lee. He has come to stay with us again. The serving woman came out and shook hands with him in friendly fashion. Forgot Mr. Lee? Why, he was the only young man who had been seen at Holy Farm since Armorel's brothers were drowned, victims to the relentless wrath of those execrable rubies. You shall have your old room, said Dorcas. Chesson will air the bed for you and light a fire to warm the room. Well, Mr. Lee, you are not much altered. Your beard is grown and you're a bit stouter. Not much changed. You're married yet? Not yet, Dorcas. Armorel, she's a woman now. When you left her, she was little better than a child. I say she's improved, but perhaps you wish she was a child again. Indeed, no, said Roland. Everything was quite commonplace. There was not the least romance about the return of the wanderer. It was 2:30. He had had nothing to eat since breakfast, and after 3 hours and more upon the sea one is naturally hungry. Chesson laid the cloth and put the cold boiled beef, upon the table. Pickles were also produced. A pickled walnut is not a romantic object. The young man was madly in love. He had come all the 3:11 way from town on purpose to explain and dilate upon that wonderful accident, yet he took a pickled walnut. Nay, he was in a famishing condition, and he tackled the beef and beer. That old brown George full of the home-brewed with a head of foam like the head of a venerable bishop, as if he was not in love at all. And Armorel sat opposite to him at the table talking to him about the voyage in his studio, and whether he had furnished it, and all kinds of things, and Chesson hovered over him suggesting more pickles. And he laughed and Armorel laughed. Why not? They were both as happy as they could be. But Effie wondered how Armorel, whose heart was so full, whose soul was so charged and heavy with love, could laugh thus gaily and talk thus idly. After luncheon, which of course was, in Samson fashion, dinner, Roland got up and stood in the square window, looking out to sea. Armorel stood beside him. I remember standing here, he said, one morning 5 years ago. A great deal has happened since then. A great deal. We are older, we know more of the world. We are stronger, Armorel. Their eyes met, else I should not be here. It was quite natural that Armorel should put on her jacket and take her hat, and that they should go out together. Effie took her seat in the window and lay in the sunshine, a book neglected in her lap. Armorel had got her lover back. She loved him. Oh, she loved him. So heavenly is the contemplation of human love that Effie found it more soothing than the words of wisdom in her book, more full of comfort than any printed page. Human love, she knew well, would never fall to her lot, all the more should she meditate on love in others. Well, she has her compensations. While others act, she looks on. While others feel, she will tell the world in her verse what and how they feel. To be loved is the chief and crowning blessing for a woman, but such as Effie have their consolations. She looked up and saw old Dorcas standing in the door. They have gone out in the boat, she said. When I saw him coming over the hill, I said to Chesson, he's come again, he's come for Armorel at last. I always knew he would, and now they've gone out in the boat to be quite alone. Is he worth her, Miss Effie? Is he worth my girl? If he is not, she will make him worth her. But nobody could be worth Armorel. Are you sure you are not mistaken, Dorcas? No, 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 I am not mistaken. The love light is in his eyes and the answering love in hers. I know the child. She loved him 6 years ago. She is as steadfast as the compass. She can never change. Once love, always love, and no other love. She has thought about him ever since. Why did she go away and leave us alone without her for 5 long years? She wanted to 312 learn things so as to make herself fit for him. As if he would care what things she knew if only he loved her. 'Twas the beautiful maid he would love, with her soft heart and her tender voice and her steadfast ways, not what she knew. Oh, but Dorcas, perhaps you are not quite sure. We do not know, one may be mistaken. You may be mistaken, Miss Effie. As for me, I've been married for 55 years. A woman of my age is never mistaken. I saw the love light in his eyes, and I saw the answering love in hers. And I know my own girl that I've nursed and brought up since the cruel sea swallowed up her father and her mother and her brothers. No, Miss Effie, I know what I can see. One does not, as a rule, go in a small open boat upon the water in December, even in Scilly, whose winter hath nor frost nor snow. But these two young people quite naturally, and without so much as asking whether it was summer or winter, got into the boat. Roland took the oars, Armorel sat in the stern. They put out from Samson what time the midwinter sun was sinking low. The tide was rising fast, and the wind was from the southeast. When they were clear of Green Island, Roland hoisted the sail. I have a fancy, he said, to sail out to Round Island and to see Camber Rock again this first day of my return. Shall we have time? We can let the sun go down, there will be light enough yet for an hour. You can steer the craft in the dark, Armorel. You are captain of this boat and I am your crew. You can steer me safely home, even on the darkest night, in the blackest time, he added, with a deeper meaning than lay in his simple words. The sail caught the breeze and the boat heeled over. Roland sat holding the rope while Armorel steered. Neither spoke. They sailed up New Grincy Channel between Tresco and Bryher, past Hangman's Island, past Cromwell's castle. They sailed right through beyond the rocks and ledges outlying Tresco, outside Menevauer, the great triple rock with his two narrow channels, and so to the north of Round Island. The sky was aflame, the waters were splendid with the colors of the west. They rounded the island. Then Roland lowered the sail and put out the oars. We must row now, he said. How glorious it all is, I am back again. 9 short months ago, you remember, Armorel? How could I have hoped to come here again, to sail with you in your boat? Yet you are here, she said simply. I have so much to say, and I could not say it except in the boat. Yes, Roland. First of all, I have sold that picture. It is not a great price that I have taken, but I have sold it. You will be pleased to 313 hear that. Next, I have 2 commissions at a better price. Don't believe, Armorel, that I am thinking about nothing but money. The first step towards success, remember, is to be self-supporting. Well, I have taken that first step. I have also obtained some work on an illustrated paper. That keeps me going. I have regained my lost position, and more, Armorel. The way is open to me at last. Everything is open to me now if I can force myself to the front. No man can ask for more, can he? No, he cannot. As for the time, Armorel, the horrible, shameful time. Roland, you said you would not come here until the shame of that time belonged altogether to the past. It does, yet the memory lingers. Sometimes at night I think of it and I am abased. We cannot forget, I suppose we can never forget. That is the burden which we lay upon ourselves. Oh, we must all walk humbly, because we have all fallen so far short of the best, and because we cannot forget. But to be forgiven, that also is so hard. Oh, Roland, you mistake. We can always forgive those we love. Yes, everything, until 70 times 7. How can we love if we cannot forgive? The difficulty is to forgive ourselves. We shall do that when we have risen high enough to understand how great a thing is the soul. I don't know how to put what I wish to say. Once I read in a book that there was a soul who wished, who would not, to enter into heaven. The doors were wide open. The hands of the angels were held out in love and welcome, but the soul shrank back. I cannot enter, he said. I cannot forgive myself. You must learn to forgive yourself, Roland. As for those who love you, they ask for nothing more than to see your foot upon the upward slope. It is there, Armorel. Twice you have saved me, once from death by drowning, once from a worse death still, the second death. Twice your arms have been stretched out to save me from destruction. They were silent again. The boat rocked gently in the water. The setting sun upon Armorel's face lent her cheek a warmer, softer glow, and lit her eyes, which were suffused with tears. Roland, sitting in his place, started up and dipped the oars again. It is nearly half-tide now, he said. Let us row through the Camber Pass. I want to see that dark ravine again. It is the place I painted with you, you of the present, not of the past, in it. I have sold the picture, but I have a copy. Now I have two paintings with you in each. One hangs in the studio and the other in my own room, so that by night as well as by day I feel that my guardian angel is always with me. Through the narrow ravine between Camber Rock and Round 314 Island, the water races and boils and roars when the tide runs strongly. Now, it was flowing gently, almost still. The sun was so low that the rock on the east side was obscured by the great mass of Round Island. The channel was quite dark. The dipping of the oars echoed along the black walls of rock, but overhead there was the soft and glowing sky, and in the light blue already appeared 2 or 3 stars. A strange thing has happened to me, Armorel, Roland said, speaking low, as if in a church, a very strange and wonderful thing. It is a thing which connects me with you and with your people and with the island of Samson. You remember the story told us one evening, the evening before I left you, by the ancient lady. Of course, she told that story so often, and I used to suffer such agonies of shame that my ancestor should act so basely, and such terrors in thinking of the fate of his soul, that I am not likely to forget the story. You remember that she mistook me for Robert Fletcher. Yes, I remember. She was not so very far wrong, Armorel, because, you see, I am Robert Fletcher's great-grandson. Oh, Roland, is it possible? I suppose that there may have been some resemblance. She forgot the present and was carried back in imagination to the past, 80 years ago. Oh, and you did not know. If you think of it, Armorel, very few middle-class people are able to tell the maiden name of their grandmother. We do not keep our genealogies as we should. Then how did you find it out? Mr. Jagnell, your lawyer, found it out. He sent for me and proved it quite clearly. Robert Fletcher left 3 daughters. The eldest died unmarried, the second and third married. I am the grandson of the second daughter who went to Australia. Now, which is very odd, the only grandson of the third daughter is a man whose name you may remember. They call him Alec Fielding. He is at once a painter, a poet, a novelist, and is about to become, I hear, a dramatist. He is my own cousin. This is strange, is it not? Oh, it is wonderful. Mr. Jagnell at the same time made me a communication. He was instructed, he said, by you. Therefore, you know the nature of the communication. He gave you the rubies. Yes, he gave them to me. I have brought them back. They are in my pocket. I restore them to you, Armorel. He drew forth the packet, the case of shagreen, and laid it in Armorel's lap 315. Keep them, I will not have them. Let me never see them. She gave them back to him quickly. Keep them out of my sight, Roland. They are horrible things. They bring disaster and destruction. You will not have them. You positively refuse to have them. Then I can keep them to myself. Why, that is brave. He opened the case and unrolled the silken wrapper. See, Armorel, the pretty things, they sparkle in the dying light. Do you know that they are worth many thousands? You have given me a fortune. I am rich at last. What is there in the world to compare with being rich? Now I can buy anything I want. The way of wealth is the way of pleasure. What did I tell you? My feet were dragged into that way as if with ropes. Now they can go dancing of their own accord. No need to drag them. They fly, they trip, they have wings. What is art? What is work? What is the soul? Nothing. Here, he took up a handful of the stones and dropped them back again. Here, Armorel, is what will purchase pleasure, solid comfort. I shall live in ease and sloth. I shall do nothing. I shall feast every day. Everybody will call me a great painter because I am rich. Oh, I have a splendid vision of the days to come, when I have turned these glittering things into cash. Farewell drudgery, I am rich. Farewell disappointment, I am rich. Farewell servitude, I am rich. Farewell work and struggle, I am rich. Why should I care any more for art? I am rich, Armorel, I am rich. That is not all you are going to say about the rubies, Roland. Come to the conclusion. Not quite all. In the old days I flung away everything for the way of wealth and the way of pleasure, as I thought. Good heavens, what wealth came to me? What pleasure? Well, Armorel, in your presence I now throw away the wealth. Since you will not have it, I will not. He seized the case as if he would throw it overboard. She leaned forward eagerly and stopped him. Will you really do this, Roland? Stop a moment. Think, it is a great sacrifice. You might use that wealth for all kinds of good and useful things. You could command the making of beautiful things. You could help yourself in your art. You could travel and study. You could do a great deal, with all this money. Think before you do what can never be undone. Roland, for reply, laid the rubies again in her lap. It was as if one should bring a trespass offering and lay it upon the altar. The case was open, and the light was still strong enough overhead for the rubies to be seen in a glittering heap. He took them up again. Do you consent, Armorel? She bowed her head. He took a handful of the stones and dropped them in the water. There was a little splash, and the precious stones, the fortune of 316 Robert Fletcher, the gems of the Burma mines, dropped like a shower upon the surface. They were, as we know, nothing but bits of paste and glass, but this he did not know. And therefore the trespass offering was rich and precious. Then he took the silken kerchief which had wrapped them and threw the rest away, as one throws into the sea a handful of pebbles picked up on the beach. So, he said, that is done, and now I am poor again. You shall keep the empty case, Armorel, if you like. No, no, I do not want even the case. I want never to be reminded again of the rubies and the story of Robert Fletcher. Roland dipped the oars again, and with 2 or 3 vigorous strokes pulled the boat out of the dark channel, the tomb of his wealth, into the open water beyond. There in the dying light the puffins swam and dived, and the seagulls screamed as they flew overhead, and on the edge of the rocks the shags stood in meditative rows. Far away in the studio of the poet-painter, the cleverest man in London, sat 2 who were uneasy with the same gnawing anxiety. Roland lay, they knew by this time, had the rubies. When would the discovery be made? When would there be an inquiry? What would come out? As the time goes on, this anxiety will grow less, but it will never wholly vanish. It will change perhaps into curiosity as to what has been done with those bits of glass and paste. Why has not Roland found out? He must have given them to his wife, and she must have kept them locked up. Some day it will be discovered that they are valueless. But then it will be far too late for any inquiry. As yet they do not speak to each other of the thing. It is too recent. Roland Lee has but just acquired his fortune. He is still gloating over the stones. He is building castles in the air. He is planning his future. When he finds out the truth about them, what will happen then? I have had a bad dream of temptation with rubies, Armorel. Temptation harder than you would believe. How calm is the sea tonight, how warm the air. The last light of the west lies on your cheek, and Armorel? Oh, Armorel. It was nearly 6 o'clock, long after dark, when the 2 came home. They walked over the hill hand in hand. They entered the room hand in hand, their faces grave and solemn. I know not what things had been said between them, but they were things quite sacred. Only the lighter things, the things of the surface, the things that everybody expects, can be set down concerning love. The tears stood in Armorel's eyes, and, as if Effie had not been in the room at all, she held out both her hands for her lover 317 to take, and when he bent his head she raised her face to meet his lips. You have come back to me, Roland, she said. You have grown so tall, grown to your full height. Welcome home. At 7 the door opened and the serving folk came in. First marched Justinian, bowed and bent but still active. Then Dorcas, also bowed and bent but active. Then Chesson. Effie turned down the lamp. Dorcas stood for a moment, while Chesson placed the chairs, gazing upon Roland, who stood erect as a soldier surveyed by his captain. You have got a good face, she said. If a loving face is a good face. If you love her, you will make her happy. If she loves you, your lot is happy. If you deserve her, you are not far from the kingdom of heaven. Your words, Dorcas, he replied, are of good omen. Chesson shall make a posset tonight, she said. If ever a posset was made, one shall be made tonight. A sherry posset? I remember the posset for your mother, Armorel, and for your grandmother, the first day she came here with her sweetheart. A sherry posset you shall have, hot and strong. The old man sat down and threw small lumps of coal upon the fire. Then the flames leaped up, and the red light played about the room, and showed the golden torque round Armorel's neck, and played upon her glowing face as she took her fiddle and stood up in the old place to play to them in the old fashion. Dorcas sat opposite her husband, at her left hand, Chesson with her spinning wheel. It was all except for the ancient lady and the hooded chair, all exactly as Roland remembered it nearly 6 years before. Yet, as Armorel said, though outside there was the music of the waves and within the music of her violin, the music was set to other words and arranged for another key. Between himself of that time and of the present, how great a gulf. Armorel finished tuning and looked towards her master. Dissembling love, he commanded. 'Tis a moving piece and you play it rarely, dissembling love.